Hi everybody, just me here and my tree frogs, which you can hear in the backyard, and thinking today about havens. Well, the truth is I think about havens all the time. I just dream of our schools, all of them, and our early childhood programs and our universities. You know, my background is as a teacher. I always think of myself as a teacher first, so I think of schools. I have a little one and who's in grade 3 next year, and so I think of schools in particular. But I just want havens everywhere. And ever since Stuart started speaking on those, I mean, it's not a new idea. We've been talking about havens for a long time. Google haven, you'll find all kinds of havens out there. And you know, what do we mean by haven? What do we mean by haven? So we mean safe, absolutely safe. So that's a piece of it. This actually, me filming here in my backyard, me and the tree frogs, is, you know, you could say that that's a bit of a haven. I'm in a country. I'm lucky enough to live in a place where I feel like I can have this conversation and be safe in doing that. So that's a haven. Relationships are havens. They're safe spaces. They're places that we go to together. But what do we mean when we say a school is a haven, or a classroom is a haven, or a community is a haven? It's a question we get asked, and I'm struggling with it some because we have to create tools to help people become havens. So what is a haven? You know, and we have 3 others, so we have 4 journeys that people go on, and so this is part of my thinking, and I'm going to get to the story of why today in particular I wanted to tell you about a haven that I saw and I knew the moment I was there. And so I mean, we have 4 journeys that people take, and it's the seeds. They're going to just dabble and try some little piece of Self-Reg. We have Sunrise, which means they're taking it a bit further. They've read 1 or both of Stuart's books. He's got more than 2, but there's 2 real Self-Reg books. And you know, maybe they've watched some webinars, or they're just really interested, and they're going to try to do something around Self-Reg, some piece of it. So they're going to pick some little piece of the domains, or piece of, so they're going to test it out and pilot it. And then we have the quilt, and it's interesting. I know it's not in the theme of nature. Seed, Sunrise, and the last one is haven, and quilt is very much a man-made something that we put together, but that's actually part of the story. The quilt is when, at a broader level, it has to involve leadership, or it can't really be a quilt. You're piecing together a number of different programs, resources, priorities, practices, policy. Policy is a big part of quilts, and you know, and it's piecing these together to make a Self-Reg initiative. But it's still very much pieced together, and that is both a good thing. It's definitely on the right track, but it's very much in a different realm altogether than havens, and havens are our dreams. And havens are not something that you work towards linearly. You start at seeds, you go to Sunrise, you go to quilt, and then you become it doesn't work like that. You decide to become a haven, and you create it, and you live it through all of your relationships. Relationships are a real key, and you just begin as a haven. And that's really hard to tell people how to do, because it sounds like a really huge thing. It's like, oh my Lord, how do I do this? Well, it's a process. You're always trying to get there, and it definitely has to have, here's the key, Self-Reg has to be. By that I mean the 5 domains and the 5 steps of Self-Reg. When I say Self-Reg, I'm talking those 5 steps: learning to read and reframe, recognizing stressors, reducing them, right? Identifying them, get rid of some of them, reduce them. Reflect, which is all about developing stress awareness in ourselves and our children, and being able to recognize it. And then there is respond, which has the aspects of adapting, coping. But before we jump to coping, let's first of all reduce some of these stressors that we can, and it sounds so simple, and it's not. And but then there's also the whole idea about restoring, and this idea of learning what a stress cycle is. This is not just a little bit of stress and a couple of stress tips. There's so much more to Self-Reg. Energy is piece of it. It's the other side of the coin, as Stuart would say. So how do we create create these havens? I mean, that's the question, right? Stuart says that he recognizes one the moment he walks into it, and I agree. He's also careful. He says we have to be cautious and check that our, what we perceived is right, because everybody has a bad moment. Haven doesn't mean you're perfect. But mostly it's that sense that you get when you walk into a space. You could call it somebody's home, you could call it a community center, you could call it an early childhood program, you call it a classroom, a school. And you know that this is a haven. So it begins with safe. But safe is not just physical safe. It's relational safe, that emotional safety. You look at the power relationships between children and adults. Who's running the show? Whose rules? How is the leadership distributed? Is it shared? How do people treat each other at the tough times? How do people disagree? It's a really big one. What happens when you disagree? Do you just try to make amends and find a happy medium? Or is it a really safe place where you can just speak and say your own mind and what it is that you believe in? Is it also culturally safe? Hey, cultural safety is a huge one. You're in a remote northern community. That place should feel like your space, right? But you're also in a big city in a kindergarten program. Well, is it a whole bunch of stuff that's been developed by a teacher, or is it something that you've created and you've contributed to as a child, right? Is it a place that a parent can walk into? Do they feel safe walking in? Is that okay? It should be. If it's a haven, it is a haven. Havens, and think about nature and natural. So I mean, there's all kinds of environmental things that you do to make a space feel lovely, but havens are really about that safe relationship. So the haven I was going to tell you about today is where my daughter is at camp, and I'm going to get their permission to share some pictures. It's the Kawartha Environment Camp, and Camp Kawartha it's called, and it's just so wonderful. It's honestly what I would dream of seeing in some of our early childhood and kindergarten programs, and I'm sure there are some out there like it. I walk in, every adult, the way they relate to the children is unbelievable. There's all different ages. There's things going on around the space. They have a natural playground. They have, there's music being played. There's it's just this an amazing place. And I'll share some pictures with you in the writing that goes along with this video blog. But the truth is, it's this thing that I can't quite describe. I just know that I'm in this safe place the moment that I'm there. Every child is loved and respected for who they are. Every parent is welcome and connected and part of the community. There is no, you just watch the way that people interact, and I know limbic alarms are not going off. You just feel it. You just feel that everybody's in that PFC space where when a problem comes up, you solve it together, that it's not about the things that were planned for the day. Somebody, I've because it's pretty wild camp. They do lots of cool things, and they hike way out, and I'm hearing these stories. They're learning about nature and the environment and all of these sorts of things. But if something goes wrong, well, they just deal with that, and that becomes part of it. It's like the idea of curriculum for the schools folks is not, to me, it was you plan curriculum. You absolutely plan curriculum. But it's not just what you plan, it's what's lived. So it has, if you plan to do your lesson on XYZ, or to do even something in an inquiry-based way, or you're trying to do the provocations, so to get things to come out, so following along with the children's learning, and then something happens to totally shift the direction of the day, well, do you go with that? Do you go with that? Because in a haven you do. You absolutely do, and it's about that right brain to right brain. It's about being in limbic resonance, and it just screams safe. I mean, is screaming safe really the right word? I don't know, but you feel it. It just oozes out of absolutely everything. And that starts with relationships. That starts with leaders. So those leaders, I'm so excited, the leaders we have in Self-Reg, because they have to model, you have to walk your talk on this. Does not mean you're perfect, but it means you need to recognize yourself in the equation when your limbic alarm has been triggered, because we have them too, right? We feel threatened, somebody is thinking bad things about us, or accusation, or the physical movement, and we notice our own. That's part of understanding Self-Reg. And how do we respond? Because we are, as the adult in the space, we are able to use that interbrain, to use that collective to bring the whole group along and to make everything we do feel safe. And out of that blossoms the most amazing gifts, not just for the children, not just for the families that need to feel this and feel welcome and included, and feel that these safe spaces reflect who they are and their values, but it also is for us. Put away the classroom management ideas. It's totally different. It's a total flip on things, and you might think, am I going to lose control? It's the exact opposite. It's democracy. It's being able to express when you need help, and having those who, when you don't have those words to express, who are recognizing when there's a stress response going on. It's safe. It's family. It's relationships, and I think it's the hope of the future. Self-Reg, to me, and Stuart and Dr. Shanker's work, is the science behind the spirit journey. Like, it helps us figure out the how. This is not just ooey gooey nice, I feel good, one world. I feel like that. I believe that. Anybody who knows me knows that I dream of that. It's the science of the how. It's holy smokes. I look at you and I suddenly can realize when you're in survival brain, or we can call it in the limbic brain, when you're having a stress response, and I see that with soft eyes and compassion, well, how can that change us? It can change us a whole bunch. And we need that right now, all of us. So go build havens and tell us about them and share them and tell us your stories, and know that you can start tomorrow. There's no getting ready. There's deciding you're going to be this haven, and that's how you want to live, and working towards it. And we'll support you in any way we can. Take care. Bye.